this Honorable Superior Court for the County of Wake is now convened and sitting for this special session. The Honorable Judge Brian Collins is present presiding. Oh yes, God save the state in this honorable court. Please be seated, remain quiet, check all cell phones, make sure they are on silent. Good afternoon, Your Honors.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sheriff. Thank you very much. I want to welcome everybody to this special ceremonial session of the Wake County Superior Court. I think it's one of the best things we do here. I don't have a whole lot to say right now. I'm just going to turn the session over to the chairman of the Memorials Committee, Mary Winstead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mary Winstead, chair of the 10th Judicial District Wake County Bar Association Memorials Committee. It is an honor for me to serve as chair of the committee that plans and hosts these memorial services. On behalf of the members of the committee, I want to welcome everyone to this special memorial session of court. The 5 distinguished lawyers we honor today have been remembered in other ways and in other services, no doubt. But this memorial session of court is different because it allows our bar to celebrate the lives of our members with you, their families, their friends, and their colleagues. It is also fitting that this particular service falls during the season of gratitude as we express our gratefulness to your loved ones for their contributions to the profession and our community. It is appropriate that we gather in this space to remember your family members and honor our deceased brothers in the law and pay them homage. After all, as was mentioned, many of your loved ones likely spend as much time with other attorneys and in courtrooms as with their families, so it's fitting that we pay them tribute in this place in a special session of court. These memorial sessions always reveal so much about our amazing lawyers and our local bar. I've often mused that attendance at these services should be required attendance for young attorneys for continuing legal education, because inevitably we hear of ways that the older lawyers of our bar embodied professionalism, perhaps in ways that have been lost with the passage of time. Hopefully, these services are a welcome opportunity for reflection and remembrance, as well as a time to share a laugh or two. It is the sincere hope of our bar that this session of court will be a memorable and special time for you. Today, we collectively pause from the business of meting out justice in these courtrooms and all that comes with that to honor these attorneys who are no longer with us, but each of whom has left a legacy that we want to honor. On behalf of the Memorials Committee, I want to thank you, the families of our honorees, for sharing them with us and for allowing us to honor them. Our first honoree today is Randall D. Avram, and he will be remembered by Richard D. Haygood.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. I am Richard Haygood. I was really humbled and honored when the Avram family asked me to say some words about Randy Avram. I have to tell you, I have found the tears come very easily when I've been thinking about my remarks, so I'm going to do my best to keep it together. I had the opportunity to know Randy throughout my entire professional life, and I feel really very blessed to have done so. I don't know if everyone has the opportunity to have a lifelong mentor as I did with Randy. And I don't think I knew what that word meant when I first heard it until I really was able to reflect about my experiences with Randy. I also had the opportunity to be with a team that was close-knit beyond my experiences at any other time in my life. And I think Randy was quite a team builder. And I had joy in my professional life that I just don't know that everyone gets to have, that experience of loving work and loving what it is that I'm doing and having a career for which I could be passionate about. And, you know, so for all these things, I think I am forever going to be grateful for Randy, not only for the opportunities he provided me, but he also set an example for me of how to be a loving and present father, and how to be a successful partner in a law firm, how to develop really long-standing relationships with clients that you served with all you had, and how to be a true and loyal friend. I mean, for me, Randy set the gold standard, and I'll probably be trying to somehow measure up for the rest of my days. I doubt very much I will get there, but I will for sure be a better person for making the effort. I was tempted to maybe tell some stories chronologically about how I came to know Randy, but I see so many familiar faces. Many of you were there for some of my stories, and I know you'd just be thinking, God, Randy would tell this story so much better. If you didn't know Randy, he was a legendary storyteller. So I will try maybe not to do so much of that, but I feel like I ought to at least set some context for my comments. I met Randy almost 30 years ago. I was a summer associate after my first year of law school at Hunton & Williams. I thought I wanted to be an environmental lawyer. Now, this was clearly not a good fit. I was a history and English major, went to law school because I didn't like science and math. And so, I mean, if we have environmental lawyers, you know, like clearly this was not a good fit for me. But I had never heard of labor and employment law. I didn't know that was a thing. I only met Randy because the firm had this rotation system for summer associates, and so my last 2 weeks I went to labor and employment. Randy was a young partner, and he and his partner needed an associate. And so I was exposed to Randy and his practice for 2 weeks. At the end of that, I went back to Carolina Law School and I changed my schedule. I went through drop ad and I begged professors to admit me to their classes so I could take labor law, so I could take employment discrimination, because that's what I wanted to do. And I went back to Hunton & Williams the next summer, and I spent most of my time on Randy's team, and I was fortunate enough to receive an offer. And I tried to think about how that, like, what was it? Like two weeks, and I knew that was the thing. And it's hard to put into words, but I mean, at the time, I probably would have used some trite expression like work hard, play hard. And I think that's probably would have done for the time, but I think that's a gross oversimplification of what we did and what Randy was like. I mean, he was a person who clearly would work very hard, and he had very much paid his dues. But he loved what he did, and it was infectious. I mean, you wanted to be with him, working with him, and I had the great good fortune to travel with him a lot. And he made it seem easy, but I learned it was not. But that was the nature of being around Randy, was that he made the work seem light. And his personal charisma, his good nature, it really did make us all want to be a part of his team. You know, when I try to think of the things that Randy would think, I did actually set a timer, but I forgot to press the button. So I still have 7 minutes. I mean, when I think of Randy and how he would want to be remembered, he wouldn't want to be remembered by Richard telling stories. He would want you to know how much he loved and cared about his family. And those of us who worked with him, we knew this about him, and we experienced it. So how did we experience this? Randy wasn't one to spend long hours in the office. We traveled. There's not a lot of unions in North Carolina, so our work tends to take us away. And so when in North Carolina, Randy was with his family. But what that meant for those of us on his team was that we were in his home. I have so many memories of being at the Ponderosa, of working on a brief on his couch, of playing pool at his pool table, of sharing a meal with his family. And later, the hub became the beach house. And I don't think it was the architecture. I don't think it was the view or the sound of the ocean or the boat slip, though those are all really great. But this was the place where he was with his family. And one of the things about Randy is that he was one of the most authentic and genuine people I have ever had the pleasure of knowing. Like, he didn't have a work personality and a home personality. You got him. And if you knew him, and that's the way he was always. And we loved that. I can imagine for his family, it was not always easy to have like a business meeting in your living room. I mean, that was not, I don't know how he did this. It's still something of a mystery to me, but it was wonderful for us. You know, I think the other thing to me that just so stands out is Randy's ability to build a team. I mean, I would love to tell, I could tell you stories about how awesome a lawyer he was. Like, we're in a courtroom, and he was an amazing lawyer. And he was gifted at seeing the argument that would be winning, for knowing whether we were going to have the facts or the law, for putting these things together in a practical way that made sense for his clients. And he did this with a sense of purpose, but also in a way that he could teach all of us who worked with him how to do this better. And it was innate with him to be teaching others. But you know, this team building, the thing that I think was really also, one other example that I think is just unique in my experience. I work now for Koch Industries. I went to work for Georgia Pacific, which is owned by Koch Industries, and they were a client of Hunson and Williams and Randy's in 1997 when I started. It's one of the first clients that I worked with. And like many of Randy's clients, or most, the lawyers there were friends. And we were asked to go to a meeting with lawyers from other law firms to work on a comprehensive countrywide labor relations strategy. And so we go to this meeting and we meet these other lawyers from other firms, and I was very skeptical. And I'm talking to Randy about, this sucks. Pardon my language, but I'm sure those were my exact words. Like, you know, we should be doing all of this work. Like, why are we having to be with these other firms? Randy, he was our team leader. He was the relationship partner, so he would listen to me, of course, which was pretty awesome, really, when you think about it. But he was, not only was it his decision, but he was enthusiastic. He was like, you have this completely wrong. And he was right. And indeed, these lawyers became our dear friends. And our strategy sessions at Randy's Beach House, we were together. And we were all better because we were the sum of all of these different parts. And I've never had that experience of being with competitors and rivals who were just as much friends. And to this day, think of Randy as their mentor too. And will ask me, how's Amy? Because we all knew their family, and it was like we were a part of that. And the fact, so this is the Randy Avram that I knew. I miss my friend, and it's really, really an honor to be able to share a few words with you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Your Honor.
William D. Delahoyde will be remembered by Eric Evenson.
Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to be here. I'm Eric Evenson. I retired as an assistant United States attorney in Raleigh several years ago, and I had the great privilege to work with Bill Delahoyde. On behalf of the Delahoyde family, it's an honor to remember my good friend. Bill was born on January 1st, 1951 in Burlington, Wisconsin. Because he was the first baby born in Wisconsin that year, he was named Mr. Wisconsin 1951. His was a blue-collar family. His father was a Culligan man. Bill loved being born in a small town. He spent his childhood cheering for the Green Bay Packers, developing his superior golf ball striking abilities at the local golf course, enjoying his many friends, and playing quarterback for the Burlington High School football team. Bill prided himself on playing quarterback for the same team as Tony Romo, albeit 30 years apart. In 1973, he received a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. In 1978, he received a Master of Divinity, graduating cum laude from Trinity Evangelical Divinity School in Deerfield, Illinois. It was at Trinity where he met his wife, Melinda. In 1982, he graduated from Northwestern University School of Law in Chicago. After law school, he worked at the law firm of Sidley and Austin in Chicago for a year. In 1984, Bill and Melinda and their son Will moved to Raleigh, where he began serving as an assistant U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of North Carolina. He worked for U.S. Attorney Sam Curran, who's here today. He was the designated prosecutor for federal tax cases, obscenity and child exploitation cases, and technology and internet cases. Bill's legal skills were recognized on more than one occasion by special awards from the Attorney General of the United States. Bill lived his life with a deep passion for God, his family, devoting much time and effort towards Christian education. He was a founder of Trinity Academy of Raleigh and served as chairman of the board for several years. The school focused on classical education and character and spiritual development. He served on several boards, including that of Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary in Wake Forest, and he served as an associate professor of religion and law at Southeastern. In 1987, he played a very key role in the Reformation and revival of Southeastern Seminary. This Reformation received national attention, and Bill appeared on the TV program Sunday Mornings with Charles Kuralt. It was a very difficult, contentious time as the churches in the Baptist Convention were concerned that their seminaries were no longer producing pastors who were committed to evangelism and the authority of the Scriptures. Under his leadership and legal knowledge, the seminary was protected as it made a dramatic transition in leadership, direction, and doctrine. As a result, the seminary has since greatly prospered, and the student body dedicated to worldwide Christian ministry has tripled in size. This passion for evangelism and Christian missions still marks the spirit of Southeastern. Bill's work has had a ripple effect that is still being felt on earth and in heaven. From about 1991 to 1996, he was deputy chief of the General Crime Section at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Raleigh. In 1996, he became chief of the Criminal Division. I served as his deputy chief over the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. Bill was never a group thinker, but very much an individual in everything that he did. He desired to form his own business, so in October of 1997, he left the U.S. Attorney's Office to found Market Integrity for the principal purpose of helping address a national problem involving the theft and recirculation of over-the-counter pharmaceuticals in the domestic supply chain. In 2003, Bill returned to the full-time practice of law, this time in private practice by himself. Bill used his extensive trial experience to represent a wide variety of individuals in state and federal courts. He had an office on Edenton Street in downtown Raleigh. He was always looking to help get the gospel into prisons. I have known Bill since 1985 when he taught my Sunday school class at a church in North Raleigh. He was the best Sunday school teacher I ever had. In recent years, Bill returned often to visit his hometown Burlington. His primary goal was to play golf with his good friends. He loved playing golf and was an excellent golfer. One friend said, his strong faith and knowledge of Scripture was evident in everyday life. I loved his quick wit and humor. One federal agent said, Bill walked as a Christian while loyally serving his country. It was an honor to know and work with him. Another friend said, what a great man of God Bill is. There was never a time with Bill that he did not talk of faith and quote Scripture. One of his associates said, to me, he was one of the kindest, most tender-hearted people I have ever known. He always tried to do what was right and what was fair, whether prosecuting or defending. I found Bill to be humble and self-effacing. He had no ego. We often joked, we'd eat lunch together and we laughed together. We always engaged in self-deprecating, sarcastic humor. Bill loved his family. He spent a lot of time with his son, Will, bowling, watching movies together, eating out, cheering for Will at all of his Special Olympic events. With one of his greatest joys was cheering for Will, and his favorite was basketball. They were best buds. He treasured his out-of-state trips with his girls, be it for a weekend or a week. He often made quick trips to D.C. to see them. His daughters often joined him in trips to Green Bay to enjoy a Packer game. He shared a love of golf with Ben and his two, now three, beautiful grandchildren. For years, Bill and I would often meet for lunch and have many discussions on various topics. Yeah, we talked about politics and sports, but we talked about death, and we talked about life, and we talked about what was our purpose here. When you are young, you think life is long, but when you get old, you know that life is short. Bill died unexpectedly, drowning in a rip current on May 27, 2021 at Corrie Beach. He was 70 years old. He was survived by his loving wife, Melinda, sons Will and Ben, granddaughters Audrey and Chandler, daughters Maggie and Abby, and sisters Louise, Susan, and Patty. He was predeceased in death by his brother Jim. Bill and I had a long phone conversation the day before he died. I didn't know that would be the last talk with my best friend. How did Bill want to be remembered? Well, I'll tell you. He told me. In the months prior to his sudden death, he told me on several occasions about a particular song that spoke directly to how he felt. He made it a point to me to listen to this song several times. One time I was in his car and he said, listen to this song. This is the way I want to be remembered. This is how I feel. And this is the song. These are the words. Make it count. Leave a mark. Build a name for yourself. Dream your dreams. Chase your heart. Above all else, make a name the world remembers. But all an empty world can sell is empty dreams. I got lost in the light when it was up to me to make a name the world remembers. But Jesus is the only name to remember. And I don't want to leave a legacy. I don't care if they remember me, only Jesus. And I've only got one life to live. I'll let every second point to him, only Jesus. All the kingdoms built, all the trophies won will crumble into dust when it's said and done, 'cause all that really mattered, did I live the truth to the ones I love? Was my life the proof that there is only one whose name will last forever? I miss him greatly. Thank you for this opportunity to comment.
Corrie Corrie Foster will now be presented by Day Matthews.
How do you measure the life of a man? Is it measured by the wealth he acquires, the possessions he accumulates through his life, possessions he attains, the degrees that he has, the titles he holds? Is it measured about how full his social calendar is? How good his golf game is? Or, by today's standards, how impressive his digital business card is? Now, I'm convinced that the true measure of a man, regardless of how long a life he has lived, is measured by how well and how much he gives of himself to others. A man who gives unselfishly to others is a man who has lived a life that is straight, sound, and true. He is one who leaves behind a family of blessings where his children rise up and call him blessed. Yes, a man who gives of himself to others is a man who lives a legacy for generations to come. Today I am honored on behalf of myself as our 10th Judicial immediate past president and the Capital Cities Lawyers Association, which is also known as the Black Lawyers Association of Wake County, of which I served as president many, many years ago. And the wonderful members of my church and Corrie's church, Wake Chapel Church in Raleigh, to say that we knew the type of man that I just described in Mr. Corrie Foster. From his meticulous, no-nonsense stewardship of CCLA funds, getting that man to write us a check was like pulling teeth. To his tireless work as my co-chair of our church's legal and political action ministry, to his unwavering dedication and commitment as a leader of our church's Boy Scout troop, Corrie gave of himself to the uplifting education and encouragement of others. And by others, I mean those who would now call themselves the legal eagles of this great state. But more importantly, to a number of young Black men like his son Cameron, who can now stand proudly and call themselves Eagle Scouts. From helping to organize candidate and community forums for CCLA and my church, to helping register our church members to vote, to camping with the tigers, webelos, wolves, and helping organize activities for the older boys seeking to attain their Eagle Scout ranking. Corrie gave of himself, not grudgingly or of necessity, but simply because that's who he was. Small in stature, but large in heart. Corrie gave. He showed his true measure, whether working in ministry at church or exercising his legal prowess as a longtime attorney for the Utilities Commission, or just helping out representing family and friends as an officer of these courts. I can personally attest to Corrie's measure because I saw it, I felt it during the 15 or so years that we were friends and that we worked together for CCLA and in ministry, or when we were just hanging out, shooting the breeze as young attorneys here in Raleigh. For those of us who knew and loved him, Corrie was an encourager and a promoter. And yes, one of our biggest fans. I remember it would happen often when we would get together. He was about a year older than I am. We started practicing about the same time, and I've already alluded to his stature. He's kind of shorter than I am. But he thought he was my big brother in everything. And so, without fail, every time we would meet, as we were leaving, he would go into this diatribe about what he saw me doing in my legal career. He knew better than I did about the trajectory of things for me. He knew what firm I should go to. And when I would go to a firm, you need to be partner. Okay, when I make partner, now you need to go to this company, and you need to be the CEO, and you need to run for this position, and you need to be in this organization. And he would constantly tell me what I needed to do. And then I finally got up the strength for some years of hearing this to finally look down at him and say, Corrie, I don't want to work there. Corrie, I don't want to run for that position. And he would always say flippantly, all right, Day, but don't sell yourself short. That's who he was. He was a promoter. He was an encourager. Corrie, my friend, your colleagues in the law, your church, your scouts, your family, Dawn, Camille, Cameron, your children, we miss you. But I am comforted when I remember one of the last things Corrie said to me, about 3 days before his passing. It's been about 4 years now, right about this time of the year. And we were at church, as we usually were. If we weren't in court, we were in church. And we were preparing for one of our candidates' forums. And I remember, well, I don't remember exactly what I had asked him to do for me, because it was always something. I was always asking him to do something, and it was always usually late, short notice. But I remember as we were standing in the church's vestibule, and Corrie's eyes were sort of a bloodshot red, and he was holding his head. He wasn't feeling well. And I remember saying, Corrie, brother, you don't look good. Promise me you're going to go home and rest, and that you're going to go to the doctor. I will, Day. What do you need from me? He said, whatever you need from me, I will do, because I'm a servant of the ministry. Indeed, that's what you are, my friend. You are a servant. You gave and you gave. You gave to your family, to your church, to your scouts, and indeed to this august profession that we call the practice of law. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the true measure of a great man. Corrie, thank you for the legacy that you left.
William Titchener will now be presented by Kailyn Mead.
I am Kailyn Mead. I was Bill's legal assistant for many years. So not an attorney. I probably have a bit shorter of a speech than everybody else. Mine's a little bit short and sweet. But I think that might be kind of how Bill would have liked it anyways. So William Roger Titchener, but everybody knew him as Bill, practiced law for 43 years. And I had the honor of assisting him in the last 16 years of his life. Bill was simply the kindest man I ever met. He had the best sayings and was never without a story to tell. I came to know him as an inexperienced new mom at the age of 21. That was a busy year for us, finishing college, holding a wedding, and starting jobs to support our newly formed family. All I had was a simple phone conversation with him about the position, which I still remember fondly. On the other end of the line was a kind voice with a southern drawl. Not much was said about the position, or of my experience, or inexperience. But he did make sure to mention that I could bring my son in if need be, and specifically to not wear holes with jeans in them. That conversation painted a much different picture of a typical law office than what I had always imagined. But now, after spending 16 years by his side, running his small law office, that was him in a nutshell. Laid back and extremely kind. Thinking back now, the non-holy jean requirement kind of makes me giggle, because he was a man who would wear a pair of dock shoes until there were holes in them and his socks would get wet in the rain. Bill was also a bit of a character. For example, in the first few days as his legal assistant, he was already busy with real estate closings, and not knowing exactly what to do with me at the time, he asked me to run some errands. One of which was to pick up his cat. My initial reaction was absolute confusion, but apparently his beloved cat had passed away a few years earlier, and he needed me to pick up the ashes. Thankfully, that was the last interesting errand like that he ever asked me to complete. Bill had many longtime clients who were more like friends to him. He was not the typical attorney. I would even go as far to say he was unconventional. He would meet with clients and talk to them for hours without billing them. And he would even go as far to do legal work in exchange for other goods. For example, 100 Thai spring rolls, or a new computer for the office. But these qualities were what drew many clients in, and also what drew me in to work alongside him for so many years. He never met a stranger, so he loved to have clients in for their real estate closings. I would often get the question, "How long will this closing take place?" And I would often say, "Well, it can be done pretty quickly, but if you're not careful, Bill will talk to you for a few hours." His stories were endless, and I'm slightly ashamed to say, as I was so well versed in them, as he sat across from me in my office, I'd tune him out, because if I didn't, I wouldn't get any work done. He also was the biggest UNC fan, to the extent that I couldn't schedule a closing during a UNC football or basketball game. My family, we're all NC State fans. So he always liked to joke when my son came into the office, every single time, ever since he was a baby until about 15 years old, if he would like to be a UNC fan. And Connor always turned him down kindly. Bill's ability to see the good in people allowed me to secure a position that would ultimately change my life forever. He was able to look past my inexperience and gave me a chance, something that I'm forever grateful for, and one that I think he was extremely grateful for as well. Because in addition to him teaching me the ins and outs of the title and escrow industry, which I would further use in my professional career, he also became a fatherly figure to me. Bill has 2 daughters, Winnie and Liza, who are of similar age as myself. So I think he was very used to making sure young women were well taken care of. One of the first things he ever said to me was to never let anyone give me a hard time, and if anyone does, to let him know. Because as kind as he was still a protector. During his 43 years of practice, he met and influenced many individuals, but I can't attest to how they felt about him. But I can honestly say that he will forever be one of the most influential people in my life. And I thank you for allowing me to speak about my invaluable time with him as a colleague, a mentor, but mostly my friend.
Our final honoree today is Frederic Toms, and he will be presented by David Bridgman.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm David Bridgman. I've been a member of the Wake County Bar since 1998. I spent a lot of that time practicing with Fred, and it's my great honor today to be able to speak on behalf of my friend and mentor, who I worked with for so many years. Fred started practicing in 1970 with a firm in Fayetteville, but soon he moved to Corrie, back when it was a small town of just a few thousand people. He initially started working in general practice in Raleigh with the firm of Grimes, Dawkins, and Hall, and got on the court-appointed list. As many of you know, back then, if you were on the court-appointed list, you could be appointed to anything. So Fred was a very young lawyer and had done a few minor misdemeanors and felonies on the court-appointed list, and then was appointed a first-degree murder case. Fred tried his very first jury trial as a first-degree murder case, and his first trial of any kind in Superior Court. And he won. By 1975, Fred had decided that he wanted to start his own practice. And as his wife Pam told me, Fred told her he was going to hang out a shingle and that she was going to need to get a job. So he went solo for about a year and was then asked if he wanted to start a firm in Corrie with Bill Dawkins, who he had previously worked with at Grimes, Dawkins, and Hall. Fred practiced in Corrie from 1977 on with various firms until he retired in 2010. He once told me that he'd been practicing law in Corrie so long that when he started, he was allowed to have a sign. I started practicing law with Fred in 1999 with the firm of Frederic, Toms and Associates, and by then he had developed a nice stream of personal injury business and was one of the elder statesmen of the practice of law in Corrie. He was involved in a lot of community service activities, served on many committees of the Wake County Bar, including the Memorial Committee and the Ethics Committee. He served for 12 years as a member of the Board of Directors of the Corrie EMS, frequently spent his nights volunteering with the EMS and riding with them on calls. Anytime someone had the nerve to say we were ambulance chasers for practicing personal injury, I quickly pointed out that chasing was not necessary for us because Fred actually rode in the ambulance. As an attorney, Fred had all the characteristics of the old school gentleman inside the courtroom and out. He practiced law honestly, and if opposing counsel was nice, he often apologized to them when he won. He was very genuine by nature. He treated people right and treated each case with the care, no matter how big or small. Around the time I started working for Fred, a family came into our office, a family of 3, that had their minivan hit by a semi-truck that blew a red light at full speed. Miraculously, none of them appeared to be seriously injured at the time. We settled 2 of their cases fairly quickly, but one of them had the mother had lingering migraine headaches that wouldn't stop all day, every day. And at first we thought they might resolve. It soon became apparent that they were going to be permanent. And they grew progressively worse and worse and worse over the years. She had to take medication all day just to be able to function, and she saw so many neurologists. Nobody was able to help her. They all agreed that the accident caused the headaches, but there was nothing on an X-ray or MRI to point to say that was the physical cause of the headaches. It was very much like a soft tissue case where you couldn't really see the injury, but you just had to believe it was there. We had extensive evidence she couldn't work. She was going to need expensive medication, medical treatment for the rest of her life, in addition to her pain. Still, the insurance carrier maxed out their offer in the low six figures, and we tried the case over across the street on the 10th floor and got a jury verdict for $2.25 million, which we collected in full for our client. Throughout that trial, first and foremost, it was very obvious that Fred was deeply and genuinely concerned for his client. It's a testament to who he is or was as a person, because I just don't think that kind of verdict is possible on a case where there's not anything you can specifically point out without the jury just witnessing Fred's genuineness and credibility for 8 days and seeing his true authenticity as a person come through in the way that he handled that case. That was a cherry on top, so to speak, for Fred after a long and successful career. He spent his career helping people, doing things the right way, and I don't think many lawyers could achieve some of the results that he did without having the authenticity that always showed through. Fred got another cherry on top when he was inducted into the Bar Association's General Practice Hall of Fame, an award he richly deserved and appreciated. I think this award is very special because it recognizes the lawyers who help the regular people obtain justice, and that is what Fred did throughout his career. He was a great lawyer and a better man. Fred, I know you're here today watching, and I hope I've been able to do justice for someone who did justice for so many people. Thank you for all you did for everyone, and I'll see you on the other side. Thank you.
Wow, I hope you see what I mean about leaving these sessions feeling inspired. I think all of them are special, but today we not only had some laughs, we had some tears. It was just, I would say, particularly memorable, and it just makes me, and I hope you as well, just want to go out there and do good. I want to take a moment here to thank our esteemed judge, Judge Collins, for always being available and accommodating to preside over these special sessions. I want to thank the Clerk of Court, Blair Williams, for attending and helping us also coordinate the session. Of course, it would not be a session of court without our courtroom clerk and our bailiffs, so thank you for helping us out today. Thanks to Whitney Von Hom, the Executive Director of the 10th Judicial District and Wake County Bar Association, and Nathaniel Adcock, our staff liaison. Finally, I want to thank all the committee members for your time and dedication. As you can see, the session was videoed by Brian Miller, and he will make some edits, and then it will be available on the Wake County Bar Association YouTube site. Thank you all for attending today.
Well, and the last thank you and the biggest thank you goes to Mary Winstead, who is our chair, our fearless leader, and who really makes all this happen. So thank you, Mary, very much for what you do. I've been presiding over these for a long time, and I've been attending them for 38 years because I don't think I've ever missed one. I'm very inspired by what I've learned about these folks. I knew some of them well and still learned things about them that I didn't know. And learn about some history of Wake County. It's an important thing that we do. Thank all of you for being here. I hope that you'll stay and visit with each other and enjoy each other. But this court did not finish its business this morning, and I need this courtroom back at 3 o'clock. So, the sheriffs are going to open up courtroom 702 for you to stay and visit with each other and enjoy each other as long as you would like. Please do that. I think it's an important thing for us to do. But Mr. Sheriff, if you would please adjourn this special ceremonial session of the Wake County Superior Court, sine die.
Yes, sir. All rise. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. This honorable special session of Wake County Superior Court now stands adjourned, sine die. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. God save the state in this honorable court.
Thank you very much.